Right, subpart 5 is UA operations, unmanned aircraft operations, weather conditions. Okay, ultimately, you cannot fly your drone if you cannot see your drone. Done and dusted, that is weather conditions. Landing on roads, you are not allowed to land on roads. Public roads, private roads, it does not matter, okay? However, every time I say you are not allowed, remember that under extreme circumstance, you are always allowed. And as we go through the course, I will express all the different circumstances. But right now, when I say it's not allowed, just take it with a grain of salt. Okay, cool. But yes, landing on roads is not allowed. Okay, controlled airspace. Flying in any controlled airspace is not allowed unless you have jumped through the hoops necessary to fly in controlled airspace. We will talk about all of these. You see all of this, all of that. We will talk about all of that on Thursday in flight planning when we look at our different airspaces. Okay. All right, releasing object or substance. A drone is not allowed to release object or substance unless they have gotten permission. As always, every single rule can be broken with the right permission. Okay. All right. Accidents and incidents. We've talked about this already. Every accident needs to be reported to the SACAA within 24 hours. Every accident. But what is the only incident that needs to be reported? There you go. When you lose control of your drone. Okay, even if it's for 10 seconds, and then your drone decides to start up again and you can control it again. That's 10 seconds where anything could have happened in that 10 seconds. That is what we would call it an extreme incident, an EI. And in an EI situation, this is the only drone EI situation that exists, and you send it off to the CAA so that they can deal with it. Okay. Cool. Alrighty, righty-tighty. Consumption of alcohol and drugs. Guys, there is, in the drone world, it is 8 hours bottle to throttle. So in other words, if you have a flight coming up for drones, you stop drinking 8 hours before that flight. But there is another rule that is a lot bigger of a rule. This one over here. If on the day of your flight, the accountable manager decides to come and take your bloods. Let's say they draw 100 milliliters of your blood, okay? And they see that there is 0.02 grams of alcohol in that bloodstream. You are going to be, well, you're going to be punished in whatever capacity that your boss says, but you're actually not going to be allowed to fly for that day, okay? Why? Because that is the rule. If you have more than 0.02 grams of alcohol in your blood per 100 milliliters of said blood, then you are over the alcohol limit for drones. Okay. So guys, that's why the 8 hours rule is a nonsense rule. Because if I down a bottle of whiskey and it's still 8 hours before my flight, do you think that whole bottle of whiskey is going to be out of my system? No ways. Okay. In general aviation, part 91, it is 12 hours. And I would suggest and anticipate that you all stick to that 12 hours bottle to throttle, not 8 hours. Okay. Cool. Oh, also just another one there. If you're on standby for duty, so when lockdown happened, I was part of a small team that the municipality decided, hey, we might use you to fly drones. Dude, I didn't fly a drone once, and for the whole lockdown, I couldn't drink, I couldn't do anything. Because I was on standby, because they could call me at any, and I didn't even fly once. Meanwhile, everybody else was going and stocking up on their liquor, and I was like, wow. Okay, but that is the rule there. The third rule regarding substance is that you are, if you're on standby in any capacity, then you're not allowed to touch the stuff as well. Okay. All right. Then you've got your C2 operational requirements. A UAS shall comply with C2. What the heck is this? Sometimes I forget that this is the first day. Command and control. That's right. Okay, I see some peeps wording it. Command and control. Guys, the C2 link is this. You have a remote control, you have a drone. How do they talk to each other? Via the C2 link. Okay, that's what it is. It stands for the command and control link. It's just the radio connection. It's the radio link. The radio waves that travel from the antennas of the remote to the receivers on the drone. That is the command and control, the C2 link. Okay, cool. So obviously there is something called a C2 link safety case. This is where you are stating, literally, it is you stating your case, the CAA, of why your C2 link is a safe C2 link. Okay, it's part of your operations manual. It's one of the many factors within that document that you would present to your CAA body. There are 3 things to look at. I'm not going to talk about it now. We'll talk about it in radio links. But the 3 are, which is tomorrow, so you guys will have this nice and easy. The first one is downlink. The second one is uplink. And the third one is telemetry. Telemetry, guys, is just talking about your instruments, your drone software. Okay. Remember those 3 words because tomorrow we're going to start off strong with those. Okay, then we've got your precautions and safety considerations. Guys, these are easy ones. Are you going to fly your drone if your drone looks like it's not good to fly? Are you going to fly your drone if your drone has half a propeller instead of a full propeller? Okay, of course not. So there you go. General restrictions. No person shall operate a UA unless they have in their possession. Okay, you as the pilot need these documents on you. Number 1, you need your pilot license. Duh. What did we say earlier? What's the next thing we need? Medical. Because if you have your pilot license and you don't have your medical, then it's null and void. Your pilot license doesn't even matter. Okay. Pilot license and medical. Yes, then you need your op spec. Okay, if you're flying as a pilot under a UASOC, then you need a copy of the op spec. You also will then need the certificate of registration for each drone. You will need a copy of the letter of approval for said drone. And you will also need the user manual for that drone. The user manual, guys, is that manual, that booklet that comes with the drone. You buy the drone, you open the case, there's a little booklet, it says this is the details of the drone. Boom shaka. That's all you need. Okay. No unmanned aircraft shall. These are 3. There are only 3 prohibitions when it comes to drones. Only 3 according to our current regulatory standards. Number 1, a drone cannot tow another aircraft. Okay. Number 2, a drone cannot perform aerial or aerobatic flying circumstance. And number 3, a drone cannot fly in formation or swarm. Now, we know that prohibitions can be broken. How do we know that? Because you see it all the time. What about those ads where they have a bunch of drones flying together? What about those light shows where instead of fireworks they have a swarm of drones flying and doing cool lights? Okay. Of course there's going to be circumstances where prohibitions can be exempted. Part 11, your exemptions. Okay. What is the difference between a prohibition then and a regulation or a limitation? If all of them can be broken, the only difference is that your limitations can be broken on a consistent basis. What that means is, if you set up your whole operation and you show the CAA that you're flying safely, okay, like we're at the mine, right? You show them how you fly, and then you can just fly and fly and fly and fly, okay? You only need to show the CAA once that you know what you're doing, because it's in the same place, you're going to be flying the same drone, you're going to be doing it on repeat, okay? So, limitations are they are regulations that can be broken on an ongoing basis, provided you've gotten the permission to consistently break those permissions, okay, or regulations. Versus the prohibitions which require exemptions, not just permissions, but exemptions. And an exemption is a one-time thing. So every time, so let's say you're a company that literally puts on light shows with drones. Every single time you want to do that, you are going to have to go through the hoops and jump through the holes and all of that to get the exemptions for that process. Okay. Once that event is done, it falls away, and you're going to have to start from scratch again to say, hey, SACAA, I want permission to break this prohibition. And you go through all the hoops. Does that make sense? Okay, cool. Alrighty, tidy. We've talked about this. Okay, so the first thing is some limitations, just for you to know. We'll talk about this more in flight planning. But your 400-foot limit is for flight-intensive purposes. Why? Because most aircrafts are going to be flying above 400 feet. Therefore, it makes sense for us as the drone pilots to fly below that. Okay, especially because we are from ground up. Okay, we're not from this point in the sky to this point in the sky. Okay, cool. Then you've got your within a radius of 10 kilometers from an aerodrome. So that's another regulation. Also another exam question. How far away do you need to be from an aerodrome? 10 kilometers from an aerodrome. Okay. This is another one that is being oversighted as we speak, because they want to change this regulation because it makes us as the drone schools have a very, very hard time finding places to actually fly. Why? Because the whole of Johannesburg essentially is one big airport. Because you've got an airport and an airport and an airport and so you end up driving into the farmlands. Okay, let's go on a vacation and fly our drone. So they're changing that up. And then finally, you're not allowed to fly within restricted or prohibited airspace. Okay, it's important to not fly in prohibited airspace unless you have been requested, and it's important not to fly in restricted airspace unless you have gotten the approval to do so. Okay, and then the fourth one is adjacent to or above a whole bunch of things: nuclear power plants, police stations, courts of laws, whatever it is, guys. Essentially, if there's something that you think you shouldn't fly over, don't fly over it. If you go to America, you're going to lift your drone up and fly over the White House. You're not going to do this, okay? If you're here and you want to fly over a jail, you think you're going to do that. No, you're not going to do that, okay? Any place where they would assume that you're scheming something, you're not going to fly there, okay? That's right, we're always scheming. That you, I just okay. Right. We've talked about beyond visual line of sight. There's nothing that we need to talk about too much there. Let's talk about our night operations. How do you fly night operations? Number one, you need to get BVLOS rated. Number two, you need to get the following equipment. So first, you get the BVLOS rating. Second, you need to have lights installed. Okay, for a multi-rotor drone, you need to have a strobe light. And for a fixed wing, you need strobes as well as navigation lights. Now, what the heck is the difference between these lights? What are navigation lights? Yeah?
With the navigation lights on an aeroplane, that you can be used to see the direction of the flight.
Yes.
And then with the strobes for the drone, you can be able to see the location of the drone.
So it works like this. Have you guys ever looked up at night and you see an aircraft flying above you? You see a red light, you see a white flashing light, and you see a green light. Okay. The green light is on the right wing. The red light is on the left wing. Those are your navigation lights. It tells me if this is the left and right, then I know the drone is, or the aircraft in that case, is flying this way. Navigation. The strobe light is there for the ability to see that this thing exists. Okay? It's flashing. It's bringing attention to it. Why is it a strobe light and not just one consistent light? There you go. At nighttime, if you're looking up and you see just one consistent light, aren't you just going to think it's a star? Aha. So it needs to be flashing to say, look at me, look at me, look at, I'm here now. Okay, so that's the point of your strobe lights. Okay. Cool. There is another reason why. There's a human factor reason where if you stare, it's called autokinesis, where if you stare at one light for too long, depending on who you are, yeah, it either feels like the light is jumping or like your eyes are jumping. Okay. Cool, and then you've got the operations in the vicinity of people. Guys, the 3 Ps. People, property, and public roads. Okay, people, property, and public roads, 50 meters. You have to, according to our law, fly 50 meters away from all these things, unless you get permission. Now the permission will look like this. With people, the permission is from the individual person, and it needs to be written permission, not verbal permission. Because if you go to the beach and you want to fly your drone and there's a couple walking and you say to the couple, hey guys, do you mind if I fly my drone? If anything happens, tough luck. And they say yes, cool, and then you fly your drone into them and now they sue you $1 million. Of course they have a leg to stand on, because there's no evidence that you've gotten the permission. Written permission always. Okay, if you're going to be like one of those social media dudes and you're going to take your drone around, I would say print a stack of 100 written permission forms, and every time you're around a person, go to that person and have them sign that form, because that's them giving you consent, which is then a legal binding consent form. Okay, they can't then sue you $1 million because you're like, no ways, I did my research, okay, I have the proof, you signed this thing, you should have, but obviously rather don't crash into people, okay? I think that would be the ultimate. Okay. Then property, that's pretty easy. The permission is get the permission from the property owner, right? Whoever owns the land, get their permission to fly there. And public roads, guys, that's the only one where you have to get permission via the SACAA. And in that case, you can only get that permission if you get yourself a UASOC. Okay. Cool. But yes, it's 50-50-50 from all of those things. Radio communication requirements. The only flight rules where it is not required to use your radio to talk to other traffic is RVLOS conditions, restricted visual line of sight conditions. But even then, you still, if you have the ability to, you still want to use your radio to talk to the traffic around you. Okay? Why? Because even if I'm flying RVLOS and flying 150 feet, well, now a dumbass with his microlight comes flying at 100 feet. Now I'm coming down and he crashes into me. Okay? Things happen. The best preventative measure is to communicate. Talk to people on your radio. Say, hey, I'm a drone. Zulu Tango X-Ray Hotel Sierra. I'm flying in this capacity between 5,500 feet and 5,100 feet. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, the radio work, guys, we're going to do a lot of radio work with you guys. Well, I don't know about a lot, but definitely some. Okay. Cool. Okay, luckily all of this stuff, guys, definitely please go ahead and read this, okay? All of this stuff. But this is actually stuff that we will do with you at the field. We give you what is called an FOM, Field Operations Manual, and we walk you through how to find the weather, how to use software to get the answers you need, how to use an emergency response plan, how to do risk assessment, things like that. Okay. Right. Then we've got the duties of the pilot. The pilot is accountable for safe operation of the UAS. Duh. What else is the pilot responsible for? Okay. Right. You need to first make sure that you're flying in accordance with the manual. So if your drone says that it can't go beyond certain speed limits, don't go and fly your drone beyond those certain speed limits. Okay? And I'm speaking from experience where I had those 3 days of 5 crashes. Right, it said not over 5 meters per second. I was like, hell nah, dude, I'm flying anyways. No, I should not have. Okay. The pilot of a UA is responsible for separation and avoidance of other traffic as well. It is your job as the pilot to make sure that you're not crashing into other people. Okay. Now this is obviously, there's a gray area when it comes to things like students and stuff, because a lot of the time if you've got a manned student pilot and they crash into the drone, a lot of the time it's not going to be the drone operator's fault, even though there's that whole right of way mentality. Okay. It depends entirely on the situation. But usually what you need to do is go on the radio. As long as you are on the radio and telling everybody what you're doing, then nothing is really going to happen, okay? And if something does happen, at least you are on the radio so that people around you can back you up. They'll say in court, they'll say, oh, okay, no, this dude did give his call. He did say this on the radio. That other dude must have not heard him or something like that. Okay. Cool. Flight operations. Okay, this is an easy one. Operate safely. Done and dusted. That's literally that. Okay? What does safe operation look like? Well, it means don't be reckless with your drone. Don't fly, if there's power cables there, don't fly right next to the power cables. If there's a flock of birds there, don't fly into the flock of birds. Okay? Don't be reckless. Don't be stupid with your drone. Be smart. Okay. Cool. Right of way, guys. The hierarchy looks like this. Okay? The very top are your military dudes. You don't get in their way. At the very bottom is us drones. We are not supposed to get in anybody else's way. Now, obviously, there are circumstances where we do, because we have to be in the sky. We have to share the skies. So, of course, we're going to be in people's way. Okay? But usually, if we are in someone's way and we have the ability to get out of the way, that's when it is our responsibility as the drone pilot to get out of the way. Okay? Why? Again, because we're at the bottom of the food chain. So, that's the first thing you need to know, is that it is our duty to give right of way to manned aircrafts. Number 2, if you have 2 aircrafts heading for a head-on collision, both aircrafts are required to veer their track to the right. Okay, so as to prevent that head-on collision from taking place. Those are the 2 main things you need to know regarding collision and right of way.
So what if I'm delivering the land?
Yeah, that's what I mean, is there's always going to be circumstances where you're going to have to, like I spoke on Friday, I went and saw someone for BB stuff, and he spoke about, he was doing an operation where they were hired to use drones to see an implosion of a building. And there was this helicopter dude who thought, yeah, let's go and see this freaking explosion. So he was flying. And in that instance, the regulation says right of way to the helicopter. But no, the operation was the drones. So actually all he did was go on the radio and he said, you are flying into drone territory. Leave now, or something like that. And so in instances like that, the manned pilots will move. Why? Because we're not going to be dead. We won't be dead if they fly into us. Okay. All right. No, I'm just real. Like, they will. If they want to mess with us, they're going to be the ones who are going to come crashing down. Okay. Okay. Use of time. All right, guys. We use what is called a UTC time or Zulu time. Zulu time does not mean your culture, okay? No. Zulu is just a word that was stemmed from Old Navy, I think it was. From age-old American Navy, they started using words like tango and Romeo and foxtrot. And Zulu just happened to be the one that they chose for the Z. And I'm just saying that because I do have a lot of students that say, why is it called Zulu time? So the answer is, I have no clue why it's called Zulu time. Yes? Yes.
South Africa is always the last. Like, you know, with America, they use UCT.
Yes.
Which is like central time.
Yes.
So we count from the... So
backwards.
We like at the bottom, like right there. So that's why we use Zulu.
South African time, man. It's a real thing. hurry up and wait. Man, it kills me on the inside. You speed, and then you sit there for 2 hours. Yeah. Okay, anyways, use of time. So yes, we use Zulu time, UTC time. It works like this, guys. There's the first line running down, the first line of longitude. We'll talk about it in meteorology. But your first line of longitude is called the Greenwich Meridian. Okay? That is the first line that runs from the North Pole down to the South Pole. It starts at 0 degrees. You then have degrees, degrees, degrees. Okay? It works like this. That is your Zulu time. You then have +1 Alpha time, +2 Bravo time, +3 Charlie time. It's literally the alphabet. Okay? We are on Bravo time, which means we are +2. Okay? So when something is given to us in Zulu time, if we want to understand it in our local time, we add 2 hours to it. If we are given something in our local time and we want to convert it to UTC or Zulu time, you minus 2 hours. Boom shaka. Okay, flight folio we already talked about. It's basically the logbook for the drone, not for the person. Okay? What is the difference between the flight folio and the logbook?
Logbook gives me pilot's hours.
Yes.
Stuff that is done.
Yes.
Folio is for the actual aircraft.
Boom shaka. Everything that is used needs to have a logbook to talk about that use. A pilot has a logbook because the pilot is used to fly the flight. A drone has a logbook, aka flight folio, because the drone is used for the flight. A UASMT, a maintenance technician, even they have their own logbook because they need to keep track of their work as well. Okay. Cool. This, guys, is what the flight folio looks like. We don't use this anymore because we have the amazing technologies team who allows us just to literally at the field, you're going to see me whipping out my phone and entering this stuff there, okay? Because of drone logbook. Although I don't think I'll do it on this phone. My phone got busted on Saturday and I'm like, oh no. But it was a 600 Rand phone, so I'm not grieving too much. Okay, then we go on to power reserves. How much percent do you need at the end? You need 10%. Okay, what that means is you want to land with a minimum of 10% still on your battery. Okay? However, when we go into batteries tomorrow, you're going to see that actually, in fact, we want 20%, not 10%. 10% is just what the CAA did was they took a number to use for all sorts of power. Solar power, battery power, coal, fossil fuels, wind power, kinetic power. Any sort of power, they say that a minimum of 10% of that power is still needed in the vehicle by the time you land. Okay? The only issue is that with batteries, 10% is too damaging on the battery. And that's why we stick it to 20%. But we'll talk about that more tomorrow. Okay? First aid kits and fire extinguishers. There is one thing you need to know about each of them, and that is this. Both first aid kits and fire extinguishers must be within a 300-meter radius of every takeoff and landing point. That means if I take off over here and I fly 500 meters and I land over here, I either need 2 first aid kits and 2 fire extinguishers to put at each section, or I'm going to have one of each and put it in the middle. Because if it's in the middle, it will then be within a 300-meter radius of the takeoff and landing points. Lucky for us with drones, normally our takeoff and land point is the same point. And that, in that instance, the best practice is to have these things right next to you. Why? Because if your drone crashes and there's a fire, do you think it's a good idea to run 300 meters, get the fire, then you turn back and it's like, oh man, now I need a fire truck. Yeah, it doesn't work. So the best thing to do is to have it right on you that you can just quickly whip it out in. And guys, if you don't have a fire extinguisher and your battery has caught fire, what do you think you're going to do? Throw a towel over it. My God, that towel is gonna have a rough time. Sand. Okay, sand's a great one, but you're gonna need a whole whack of sand, guys. A battery fire, just a small crack in a battery this size, can make a fire from the floor up to here, like a jet fire. Yeah, go and search on YouTube. You're gonna be astounded by what these batteries can do. But no, the best thing, at least what? Yeah, obviously the extinguisher is the best option. But now, what if you don't have an extinguisher? The second best option, at least what I've been told from people in the field, is to have a 2-liter bottle of Coke. Coca-Cola, and you dump that on this fire. Yeah, man, you can't waste Coke like that. No, my thinking is if Coke is gonna put a chemical fire out, and meanwhile we're drinking that stuff. Oh my God.
You still don't want to waste it.
You know, some companies, instead, to save money, they use Coca-Cola to wash their toilets, because it does the same amount of disinfectant as an actual toilet duck. And meanwhile, we're busy drinking that stuff.
Oh my goodness.
Oh my goodness, dude. Yo.